Hello and welcome to episode 21 of the Council. We are back for season 2, I guess. I am Anthony Walsh, and joining me is the Gareth Southgate to my Roberto Mancini, Mr. Michael Brown,
So
or
topical.
Michael Da Vinci, however you want to know him as now.
Yeah, we needed a beard-related thing. No, yeah, I mean, it's exciting, and obviously, you were kind of hinting at the fact that the football is over. So it's even more, it's much easier to, I think after a while I kind of decided, I was like thinking about when to reboot Council, and I just thought, you know what, might as well just wait until the football's over at this point, because, ultimately that football, I mean, to be fair, it's kind of like when the group stage starts, you are just like, wow, this is a lot. Obviously it kind of starts to calm down, obviously, but even at the round of 16, it's 2 matches a day for what?
3 matches a day.
So sorry, it's 3 matches a day for round 16. I was trying to remember that. And then it's just ridiculous. And yeah, eventually it starts to calm down, which is nice. But yeah, it's good, of course. Yeah, and thankfully we didn't have the third place playoffs, so we were saved one game.
But unfortunately, to the fact England fans have realised it's not coming home, and it's not coming home in Qatar next year either. So let's just move straight on to what we do best and back to cancelling things. As always, we'll be going through your cancel issues and this week's headlines. So without further ado, Michael, take it away.
Yeah, so I'm going to cancel. Gareth Southgate just a bit. Okay, there's kind of like 2 things that I think need to be made. Well, maybe 3 things. Okay, so point number 1, you've got to bear in mind that while England have been doing better these last 2 tournaments, I think everyone's aware of the fact that England did have a quite lucky run for both matches of both tournaments. Like, obviously it was in the first World Cup. The World Cup, yeah, it was Colombia. Who was the quarterfinal against? Sweden, yeah, easy. And then obviously Croatia, and we lost that. Which, Croatia, that was one of the easier ones. I mean, we beat them, in this tournament. And then obviously in this time we had Germany. Okay, Germany was kind of difficult, although Germany aren't what they used to be. But then, after that, was it Ukraine and then Denmark. So quite easy, considering our semi-final was against Denmark, you can't deny that we've had an easy run. And with that said, you do have to wonder, in some sense, the jury is still out on whether or not you can actually say that England have, in a meaningful sense, been achieving results. Because obviously, at the end of the day, if we could win the final after a series of, if we can win the final against, Slovakia, I'd be like, I'd take that. But it's worth considering, has England actually shown itself to be a better team? And then, of course, the second thing, and this is the thing that lots of people are confused about Gareth Southgate, his his sheer unbridled hatred of attacking talent. It's just it's kind of weird, because it's like every single person thinks he should put, there's nobody, Gareth Southgate is apparently the last person in the world, or last person in the UK, who wants to put Grealish on. Everyone else, if anyone else was in that place, they're like, oh yeah, he should probably go on, a bit sooner. So that's that, and I'll not say too much about that, because I'll give you a second to comment on it. But then the third thing, I think the penalties were a microcosm of every single just bizarre decision Gareth Southgate makes, because in all of them you can kind of criticize some of the decisions made, and some of them paid off, some of them didn't. But you start off with Harry Kane, who missed his last penalty, obviously scored it on the rebound. So you think, okay, you're starting with somebody who the last penalty was a miss, so you think maybe that wouldn't be necessarily the best idea. And then you have Harry Maguire, who's most famous for his headers. He's famous for being in the corner. That's how he scores goals. So it's you can't head in a penalty, Gareth. And then he obviously has 2 in a row. Obviously, this was Rashford and Sancho, people he brought on specifically, seemingly, to take penalties. He brought them on to take penalties. And the fact that those 2 were the 2, started off the missing streak, already is kind of weird. But then you think, well, it's not necessarily surprising, because once you like think about the pressure that puts on them, because they know they've been put on there to score penalties. So it's like if Harry Kane can think to himself, you know what, if I miss, it's not too bad. Like I've played a good game. Marcus Rashford and Joe Sancho know they've been put on there to play to score penalties. So that's a huge amount of pressure on them, which is the one thing you'd think you'd want to avoid. And then talking about pressure, Saka, 19-year-old kid. Is it true he's never scored a penalty in a major tournament? I think that's true to say.
Never played in a major tournament.
Never played. Sorry, there we go. Yeah. I was trying to think. Yeah, of course. So yeah, 19 years old, not really much experience, scoring the what could easily be being the fifth penalty, the game winning, or in this case it would have been game saving penalty, and he hadn't really been playing that great for the he'd made quite a few mistakes in the final, which again, no judgment on him, but like he hadn't been playing his best game. It wasn't like he was playing fantastically. Obviously he was playing a lot better than I'm sure you or I could ever hope to play being a professional footballer, but not fantastic. And you just think like that's what he decided. That was like his 5 people, and you just think it's just bizarre, the decision making. So yeah, I'm not sure if you have anything. I mean, you're welcome to disagree, or you're indeed welcome to give kind of just your own general thoughts on Gareth Southgate's managing. And I will say, like, I'm not saying like he's terrible. And obviously, England have been terrible. Had bad moments with Roy Hodgson, had bad moments with Fabio Capello. But yeah, I just think Gareth Southgate, I wouldn't mind seeing him go. It's my thoughts, which I guess is the literal definition of being cancelled.
Looking back on where we first met, I cannot escape and I cannot forget. Southgate, you're the one. You still turn me on. Come on, Michael.
I'll do the hand movements. I won't sing
coming home again. Yeah, can't cancel Gareth, surely. I mean, like, to deconstruct your message, first and foremost, like, as much as I'm saying this as a fucking Irishman, what England achieved in this tournament was pretty special, and the criticism that each player has faced since then has been totally uncalled for. Secondly,
we should say that we are against racism.
And Jack Grealish should have played for Ireland and to play for England. So that bastard should never have been in the team in the first place. Maybe if he joined the Ireland squad, we'd be there at the Euros instead of having to go out to fucking Slovakia. Not bitter at all. Anyway, yeah. And finally, the penalties are just luck of the draw at the end of the day. They could be, you and I could score a penalty for any country we so cheap. Like, it's just so that is the luck of it. And at the end of the day, Southgate has brought joy to England. I think he deserves a knighthood for how he's gone from taking a pretty shit England team, which was pretty funny to laugh at, to coming 4th at the World Cup, coming 3rd in the Nations League, and now runners up in Euro 2020.
So what you're saying is the next time it's going to be
Qatar. It's Qatar. It's going to happen.
Coming home. That's
definitely questionable, but all the Karens are going to put up with it. It could be coming home in the desert.
It would be interesting, just because it will be. I would say in some sense it's almost like the jury's sort of out on Gareth Southgate, in that it would be interesting to see if England had like a less obviously, like, I'm not saying the hardest kind of set of fixtures in the world, but just less obviously lucky. It would be interesting to see how England does. I think it was interesting actually that one of my problems with the England squad, and I think it's something which has always been the case, and it's something which Gareth Southgate hasn't really curbed, is England's tendency towards, and the term I've heard to refer to this is like conservationism, but basically the idea of like when England are ahead, they tend to not really try and push hard for that second goal and things like that. They tend to be quite content to hang back and like, be like, okay, we're winning, so it's fine. It's something which I think has been curbed a bit, and obviously you had Ukraine where we ran away from it. I think it's interesting though that against Germany we, obviously scored 2 goals, which I think, I was quite. So I'd like to see. So it's possible that actually maybe when England's up against slightly harder kind of teams, maybe there will be more of an impetus to be like, realize the best defense is a healthy offense. But with that said, remind me, Luke, it's been a while. Do we do comments? There's going to be a lot of, I see, maybe there's. Do we have any comments?
No. Well, I guess we have some comments. to come back from our last video, which was nearly 2 months ago. So we have taken a bit of a healthy break. So let's call them up now. We have Amy Denver has left 4 comments for us, going back to our previous issues. She said, think guys are going to raid the female common rooms now? Spells respect pronouns, I guess. I think that was referring back to...
Yeah, it would have been. So it sounds like it would be to do with Harry Potter. I'm just trying to think of what the... Because I guess it's like spells. Like, it was something... I feel like it was probably something to do with, like, we probably made a joke about, like Harry... I could almost... I mean, I'm maybe making this up. Like, so probably something to do with, like, Harry Potter's invisibility cloak or something. And obviously, like, J.K. Rowling has come out in support of women's single-sex spaces when it comes to bathrooms and things like that. So yeah, it's kind of, I guess this was an example of why reading the comments isn't necessarily good, because it's related to jokes that we made like almost 2 months ago. Yeah. But yeah, anything else?
Lazul says Israel won't want to give Palestinians equal rights ever. To be honest, it's over. They were conquered brutally. That's the truth. Might makes right is the only way to defend that state. Valid argument, but bloody and brutal.
Yeah. I mean, I think, well, basically the thing about Israel, my take's always been that it's just like, it's just so far gone at this point that, like, it's kind of, I mean, it's almost like, when some people have like an argument and neither one of them will want to kind of back down and admit the other one's like maybe right about some things and got like a few points right and like, concede some ground. This is like that, but with tanks. Like basically at this point, they're just like if you're Israel at this point, I can understand why like neither side really wants to be like, oh, you know what? Let's just admit that we made some mistakes and try and come together, because it's just like, that's why, I mean, genuinely, I almost think that might make some right comment. I kind of do think like the only way to solve the Israel-Palestine conflict would be for like a bigger, beefier country to come in there and be like, all right, sort it out. Like, I think if at some point it might just have to be like, you know what, USA, Russia, China, just all jump in there and just sort it out amongst yourselves. That will solve the problem. Anyway, anything else?
I think that is it. Right. But Michael, if people want to get in touch and hear us our comments to discuss, where can they find us?
Well, I think it will be appropriate to do this as a football chant season. So it's cancel at gmail.com. That's CANCELCOUNCIL at gmail.com. That wasn't a very tuneful chant, but I needed to make it sound like a chant. Email address. Oh, sorry, I missed off the YT. Oh yeah, okay. You know what? That's why the tune works. Okay, CANCELCOUNCIL YT at gmail.com. And where else can they get in contact with us, Luke?
They can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and over on Discord. That is cancel YT. That is known as CANCELCOUNCIL YT.
I'm like 99% sure we must have stolen that. Like, I always think, I think stuff is a pretty catchy tune. I think it's probably one of those things where like I don't know which of us. I think it was kind of a collective effort, but yeah, I feel like might have heard it from somewhere and like it just stole it. But as long as we don't know, we can always just claim ignorance. We can be like, well, I thought no one had come up with that. Anyway,
just carry on until they come at us, and then we'll cancel them and make a mockery of them. That's what we tend to do. This week's headlines, Michael, what have you got for me?
Yeah, let's start with the most exciting news. So, okay, this is the kind of story that I find funny, just because it involves people getting hurt. Did you hear about the spectator who caused a crash at the Tour de France?
No, I did not.
Okay, basically, I mean, it's pretty much like a spectator was just stood on the sidelines and stuck some kind of appendage out and caused, obviously in doing so, a bike to lose control and fall over and then caused what I think can only be described as a multi-bike pileup. It's it's just genuinely very funny. The thing is in fact, wait, let me read you the beginning of this article. So this is from CBS News. It says, spectator who caused massive crash at Tour de France, missing after fleeing the country. It says, a spectator at the Tour de France who caused a massive crash involving dozens of cyclists is missing as race authorities plan to sue her. Tour de France Deputy Director Pierre-Yves Foucault told the AFP news agency they plan to sue the woman so that the tiny minority of people who do this don't spoil the show for everyone. So yeah, I'm just going to and holding outside and pulls over, and it's just so sorry. Yeah, I don't know why I said appendage. It's some see the things.
Some sort of flag.
It looks like it's a sign.
It's a sign. It's a sign that says "Allez au pied ami."
Allez au pied ami. Like I'm almost wondering if it was like some kind of political point. Who knows?
Yeah, and it's the way it catches one, and then it just it just becomes a penguin pile up. Like it is, and then oh dear, that is.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like you do think, no one would want to like imagine. I don't know, like you wouldn't want to be crushed by a bunch of cyclists. I guess the good thing is they're all probably quite skinny because of all their cycling. It would be much worse if it was a mobility scooter pileup. Anyway, so that's just a slightly less, slightly more silly news, slightly less political, slightly less outrageous, some might say. So let's go right over to the opposite side of the spectrum. This is from The Telegraph. Oxfam training guide blames privileged white women over root causes of sexual violence. And then it says, an Oxfam staff training document says privileged white women are supporting the root causes of sexual violence by wanting bad men imprisoned. In the wake of sex scandals that have rocked the charity, Oxfam has produced guidance which states that mainstream feminism centers on privileged white women and demands that bad men be fired or imprisoned. Accompanied by a cartoon of a crying white woman, it adds that this legitimizes criminal punishment harming black and other marginalized people. It advises staff to read a controversial new book which concludes mainstream feminism is supporting, not undoing, the root causes of sexual violence. So basically, I think this kind of gets to a problem, like one of the problems with, I guess, kind of progressive identity politics. And it really started with the whole Karen thing, where basically there was like a big issue, like it was kind of the Karen thing and the Black Lives Matter thing happening at the same time, which is, of course, like the Karen thing is, like angry white women who are, deemed to be unjustifiably angry. And then oftentimes within the context of Black Lives Matter, it was angry white women accusing black men of doing something bad. I think one of the classic examples was there's a black man out walking his dog in a park, and there was a white woman saying, saying that she was going to call the police on him and say that he had harassed her and things like that. And he was saying, "Oh, I didn't do anything. What are you talking about?" And I think that's kind of like the issue here. It's basically when you have this like identity politics thing, people want to. The issue is that obviously, there are going to be black people who do commit crimes. And within that context, there are going to be white women who want to point out the crimes that black people have committed. And the world gets a bit okay. I'm sorry. Do you have your genuine arse?
Ignore me. Carry on. Just grab my charger.
Okay.
This is why we're a podcast, so that nobody can see it. That's what we do.
Really do have the decorum for radio. Carry on. Basically, all I was going to say is that they don't really know how to react when a white woman accuses a black man of a crime, because it's like, well, obviously a woman, that's that's kind of in the press group, but then a black man, that's in the press group, so they don't know how to handle it. But it seems like nowadays it's with the whole Karen thing, white women are getting the short end of the stick. And obviously on the surface, it's one of those things which obviously like just sounds so ridiculous on the face of it, the idea that privileged white women need to stop reporting crimes because it's making black people upset. But do you have any nuanced insight on this matter?
Not really. I mean, it's sort of, it comes back to even what has been coming out of the last couple of days regarding the racist abuse towards the three black players, especially Bianca Saka as well. Is that it's I don't know why people do it. Like abuse them, hate on them for like merited work. If they've played a crap game of football, then give them all the abuse that they can do. I miss them kind of days. I don't know about you, Michael, but sounding off on players when they've had a bad game, there's nothing better I like to do. But It's I don't get why racists.
I think it's things. Well, I guess the problem is like things getting a racial context where they shouldn't. Like in this case, it's kind of like if somebody is committing, like a crime, like whether it's sexual assault or sexual harassment, then it shouldn't matter. Like they shouldn't get sympathy just because they're a person of color. And likewise, the flip side is that if somebody does a poor performance in a sports game and things like that, then they shouldn't receive any extra criticism because of being a black person. So it's kind of, it's obviously like I say, it should seem obvious. Like you don't make kind of either policies and like a social media, corporate sense and things like that, or individual action according to the race of people involved. You do it according to the actual things that they've done. And yeah, I agree with you that obviously it was a shame. And I think the reality is that there's always going to be the thing is, there's always going to be people from both sides who I think exacerbate it, and that's kind of my attitude. Like I think on the one hand, yes, there are a lot of idiots basically who felt the need to be like, oh, the fact that the three penalty shooters who missed happened to be black, as if there's some kind of black penalty missing gene or something. I'm going to start blaming black people for that. Obviously they're idiots, but I do think there are people going in like the opposite direction who are like drawing so much attention to it that it kind of just exacerbates like the racialized dimension to it. Whereas it's really kind of like, I do think it's mostly a case of like a small group of idiots. And the people who are saying like, this is, a very important political point that this racial abuse happened. It's like, well, like at the end of the day, obviously, I don't think it's not really a political point because I don't think most people who are like in any kind of serious public platform would ever come out and be like, no, actually, I think that, these people who are abusing these footballers make a very good point. Anyway, now we're covering all of the different areas. So speaking of, this is another issue, could say it's another issue relevant to feminism maybe, but you could also say it's maybe relevant to my little mobility scooters joke. This is again from CBS News, which is of course an American news network, and that's appropriate because Pinterest bans weight loss ads. Body acceptance is in, BMI is out. So yeah, basically I'll just read you the first paragraph of context. Pinterest said it is banning all weight loss ads from its platform starting July 1st, describing itself as the first major social media service to do so. The company said the new policy embraces body acceptance as a delicate time for many people as they emerge from the pandemic. So Luke, we all got a lovely look at your gorgeous figure. So what do you think about Pinterest banning weight loss ads?
When was the last time you used Pinterest?
Well, that's kind of the thing, actually. I always thought like Pinterest, not to engage in stereotypes, but I did think Pinterest was more popular with women, which obviously, like I say, it's possibly a reason why it's relevant. I think kind of like the whole anxieties about weight and things like that and like one's own body is a more dominant thing amongst women. But even now, I think like Pinterest now, it mostly exists in the form of when you try to Google something to find, like go on Google Images to find it, and then you see it like, oh, that's a perfect image, and then you click on it and it's on Pinterest and you've got to sign in to look at it, and you're like, well, that's annoying. But yeah, so the last time I used Pinterest on purpose was basically never, although I do think at one point I did make an account just so I could actually access an image.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's sort of one of those apps like Tumblr and Flickr that is just all but dead. Like if it came out tomorrow that Pinterest was shutting down, nobody would notice.
Yeah. It's really interesting that Tumblr, like, it says a lot about society that Tumblr died just because they stopped allowing porn. It's interesting. Like, honestly, the whole like way that like different social media things like evolve and survive is interesting, because then you get like other things where it's like everybody hates them, but they're still around. Like the classic example being Twitter. Like everybody hates Twitter now, but everyone still uses it. But no, yeah, I think like my main thing about it, I feel like I was speaking about this in a context a while ago, but basically like the one thing that I don't like about the whole like, I guess body acceptance / anti-diet thing is that like it's definitely true that for some people kind of narrative around like weight loss and nutrition and things like that can be harmful psychologically for a variety of reasons. But it's also true that like for other people, getting in shape could be very healthy for them. So it's like, obviously if you're somebody who is prone to like obsess over your weight, then you should probably, be able to make sure that you don't get too drawn in by like, this idea of dieting and things like that. But if you're somebody who's maybe, let's say, depressed, and one of the reasons you're depressed is because you maybe don't feel as like physically healthy as you should, then within that context, maybe actually getting some motivation to go out and lose some weight would be good for you. So that's one of the things I do think is like, I feel like it's increasingly missing from society, just understanding that like different people are different and that you can't just cater to one group of people, especially like you can't just cater to the group of people who get the most offended by things. Because the reality is that, yeah, obviously, like I do remember a while ago, there was like a whole thing where like people were coming out saying like fat shaming is good because it makes people want to lose weight. And obviously that's stupid. But nowadays it's like the general attitude is just, well, being healthy is generally a good thing. But obviously there's a balance, like you shouldn't be one of those people who's so obsessed with being healthy that it becomes unhealthy in itself. But for every single person, that balance is going to lie on like a different area. There's going to be some people who are like very kind of physically, let's say, overweight, for example, but mentally they're really happy. And maybe that's actually a good thing for them. And then obviously there's going to be some people who are they're maybe like not mentally great, but actually like the fact that they're physically in shape is one thing that's actually quite good for them. So maybe they need that. So I just think it's different strokes for different folks. And speaking of folks, would you like to hear about one place that's filled with many different folks, the land of Tolkien?
Yes.
So this is not from a news article, it's from the Tolkien Society.
Is it Tolkien or is it J.R.R. Tolkien?
Oh, sorry, yeah, Tolkien. Yeah, sorry, J.R.R. Tolkien. So actually, wait, hold on. I just saw a better version of this. Basically, I'll give you the story, but what I've clicked on doesn't have a great rundown of the different seminars, so I'll find that for you. But basically, the thing is, the Tolkien Society has decided to host a series of different lectures, and the topics they've chosen, I think you could say, are slightly politically charged in a way that is sort of just humorous, but I think it's relevant to, we've spoken about, for example, Roald Dahl being cancelled on this. That was quite an early topic. So, okay, yeah, I've got it up now. This is a list of the events. So, with the speaker Cordelia Lodgson, there's Gondor in Transition, a brief introduction to transgender realities. The Problem of Pain, portraying physical disability in the fantasy. The Invisible Other, Tolkien's Dwarf Women and the Feminine Lack. The Loss of Indigeneity, Identity and Anti-Racism. We'll go for this one again. This will be the one we end on because it's just this is such a word salad. The problematic parameters of Elrond Half-Elven and Ronald English Catholic. So make it that way you will.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and the thing is there's like quite a few of them like this. There's one that says queer atheists, agnostics, and animists. I think animists are people who believe in like animal spirits. So it seems like, and this is the official TolkienSociety.org. Obviously, yeah, it's kind of a slightly different. With Roald Dahl, we were talking about the idea of like him being criticized for some of the things he wrote. In this case, it's not quite that. Like people aren't exactly criticizing Tolkien for the content of his writing, but they are certainly trying to draw out a lot of political implications, relating to gender identity, race, apparently being a half Catholic, half Protestant, that most people would probably say isn't actually there. So, I mean, yeah, it's just a standard kind of over politicization of something which probably doesn't need it. What do you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like that was a far too long explanation of Tolkienism that a single brain can take in, I guess.
I know, yeah. But tell you what, though, those were some fantastic lecture titles. I mean, to be fair, like one of those, like sometimes you do get these ridiculous kind of like video essays where it'll be like, how, what the latest episode of Peppa Pig has to say about the Iraq War. And it's like, like how it's actually an analogy, like, okay, that sounds like, and it's almost like it's so mental, it's enjoyable, but there has to be a point at which, you got to start being like, okay, I think we're going a bit too far, seriously. Anyway, I've
got one more
Oh,
story to come in, and this is my kind of story, and I hope you're sitting comfortably. 34 million euros worth of cocaine disguised as coal seized by Gardaí.
Disguised as coal.
Gardaí believe they have seized up to half a ton of cocaine, which was disguised as coal and concealed as a shipment of bags of coal to Ireland. The drugs are estimated to be over 34 million euro, almost 4 times the value of all the cocaine seized here for all of last year. It's the first time this method of drug smuggling has been discovered in Ireland.
Wow. Yeah, see, I mean, like the thing about coal. Now, I'm not a scientist, but I think I'm right in saying that cocaine is white and coal is black. So I guess the anti-racism measures are really having some benefits now. They're like, you can't
like genuinely. I'm looking at it now. It is black. Like, it is believable to be coal.
Okay, that's interesting. See, I don't know. Like, I do think who's going to be smoking black cocaine? No, I mean, I can kind of see. So I guess maybe it's like, because obviously cocaine, I assume it's kind of like broken up into like into powder. So maybe this was
the drugs, which were hidden in over 1,020 kilo bags of coal, were smuggled in 2 large containers from South America to Rotterdam. I mean, that says.
To be fair, you'd almost think, like, what does it say about like the world when you've already transported it to the Netherlands and you haven't found enough people to do drugs there? So you've got like, what is like
the process of disguising the drugs involved mixing pure cocaine with a carbon dust, a black dye, and an odor blocker. This was then molded into blocks to look like coal and hidden in the bags of coal.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like so much effort, and you kind of feel like what they probably should have done. This is my theory, okay? It seems like this was quite an experimental thing. They probably shouldn't have like gone straight for 34 million euros. They should have been like, okay, let's try it with one bag first, see if it gets through. Like, have a trial run before you try and move 34 million of the stuff. Because I mean, you think about that, like, it's one of those things when you hear it, you're just like, well, that's like, because I assume like the black market is quite a large economy, but you think like that's essentially just like 34 million euros just vanished effectively, because obviously like the police can't sell that cocaine on. I mean, I don't know what the Irish police are like, but I like to think, they've come a long way from when the IRA used to like traffic guns for criminals and stuff in order to fight the good fight. But you'd think, they can't sell it on. So essentially it's just going to be like 34 million worth just sitting in a vault. And it's just like, seems kind of like a waste. But then I guess you could say, you know what? In some ways, doing drugs is a bit of a waste too, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Waste man.
Let's move swiftly on.
That's our anti-drugs PSA. Let's cancel drugs, kids. And speaking of cancelling,
2 white straight men.
Yes. What are you cancelling?
I am cancelling this week, and this might come as no surprise. Government statistics. As we build up to the Freedom Day that is Monday coming. We are.
I thought you were talking about the census for 1 second.
No. I'm talking about the COVID government statistics.
Yeah.
Because as much as we are heading towards freedom, where we can go out and not wear a mask, not get in trouble for it,
cough in each other's faces.
30,000 cases a day. Deaths are increasing at a rate which is increasingly alarming. But apparently, it's all fine. So 30,000 cases a day is perfectly acceptable. So I'm cancelling them because they make no sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's all weird. Like it's always really fun to me. You look back at like when the first lockdown happened, and it literally like barely even registers as a bump, and you're just like, but then like obviously part of it is like, I think what they're kind of saying, I don't really get how logic works, because obviously the deaths aren't as high. Like the deaths were like higher when there was like hardly anybody getting it back in March and April, and I like to think that's because all the old people got it first, and we got them out the way, but. I mean, the thing is, like, I find like the whole Freedom Day thing, it's a bit weird, because you just think to yourself, like, I would think that the main thing should just be, well, like, wearing a mask isn't the hardest thing in the world. So just like have like no lockdown, just like get rid of the lockdown, but just say, you know what, just keep wearing a mask just in case, just because it seems like have like a slight precaution there, because like I just think it seems like a lot safer. I mean, because I mean the concern is of course not that like apart from anything else, if the cases suddenly like shoot through the roof, then it's going to be a pretty short period of lockdown being eased. And obviously, the concern is that we, if we want to do things, say, in August, in September, if you actually want to enjoy your summer, then what you don't want to do is have every single person head out all at once, no masks, no security, no precautions, no nothing, really early on. Suddenly it rises. Because that's what happened with Christmas, of course, where basically they eased the lockdown essentially too early, which meant that by the time it got around to Christmas, they were basically forced to do a lockdown because the cases were so high. Whereas, of course, if they would have just taken it a bit more cautious, then they could have like guaranteed that Christmas would be okay. And that's kind of my thoughts in it. Like ultimately, if you actually want to go out and enjoy your summer, then there does need to be a degree of like doing it responsibly. And I was actually thinking, like in hindsight, it would be interesting if you just had like a country where, say, there was like a proper full-on dictator, and he just said, you know what, we're going to have no lockdown at all, but we're going to have like police everywhere, and if anybody doesn't wear a mask or wears a mask incorrectly, then there's going to be like a £500 fine.
Oh no, just shot dead.
Shot dead, yeah. I mean, that's fine. Yeah. Either or, But yeah, basically, and then that way. But I was just saying, £500 fine. I mean, that way it pays for itself. That's pretty smart, eh? Or like forced labor, actually, because that pays like 1 month forced labor. And then like the thing is, if that had happened, then it would be like everybody was forced to wear a mask. So at that point, the rate of spread would be quite low. Like obviously, it's always kind of the jury's out with this kind of like how effective exactly are masks, and is it like only effective if you're the one wearing them, things like that. But that way, if you think about it, the way that the economy would have been able to keep going, because how much money has been lost from the lockdowns and things like that, you'd think compared to that, not to say nothing of the psychological impact, and obviously the personal economic impact to different people, like just forcing everyone to wear masks seems like it would have been the best strategy. So that's kind of always been my attitude, as a typical centrist, like no lockdown, but yes masks, because lockdown has a lot of negative effects. Masks don't really. If anything, it helps to boost the mask industry.
as if we it's like Zoom, isn't it? It's like as if they needed an extra boost of income. Is that they've only had like 15 months of exponential growth in their sector.
But no, I mean, so government statistics, I guess. So just to clarify, your thing about like what you don't like about them is that it seems like the government's response to the statistics doesn't really parallel.
It doesn't add up.
With the actual statistics themselves. I think let's cancel it.
That sounded so convincing.
I was just trying to. Well, the thing is, like, I do think it's one of those things where, like, maybe there's like some kind of secret science behind the scenes where it's like, oh, well, it's not really about how many people are getting it right now. It's about like, some other like maybe it's about like where people are getting it and things like that. Like there might be like an explanation, but I do think generally speaking, with this government, and just to be again a bit of an enlightened centrist, with most governments you can err on the side of assuming that what they're doing doesn't really make any sense. So let's cancel it.
Awesome. We've actually cancelled something on our first episode back. That's what we do. But of course, if you want to suggest your issues or comment on any of the things that we talk about, Michael, where can they find us?
They can find us on email at councilcouncilYT@gmail.com. That is CANCELCOUNCILYT@gmail.com. And where else can they fiund us, Luke?
And they can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and over on Discord at CouncilYT. That is CANCELCOUNCILYT. We'd be love to discuss your issues and your comments next week for sure. But until then, I have been Luke Rules. That has been Michael Brown. We'll see you next week for another episode of Council.
Back at ya.